All right, and welcome everyone to the Ginette Biro Podcast. I'm Ginette Biro, and thank you as always for joining me on the show as we dive in to explore consciousness, expanded thought, and all the goodness that comes with all of that. So today I want to talk about the idea of people changing and how people change, because it kind of came to me through a series of ponderings. And of course, always communications with my guides. But you know, the saying that says, some people never change, right? Like, oh yeah, some people never change. People never change. That's true in some cases. When someone says they're going to change, but their actions show that they're absolutely not, then you take notice of their actions and notice that they are not, in fact, changing. But with the rate of ascension that's happening on our planet and the amount that people are growing and changing right now, there are a lot of people that are in fact changing, that are becoming better and are growing. And I think it's really important for us to consider that thought and kind of start erasing that old regular or well-known thing that people never change to people can and do change, but they have to want to. And this started from a thought from spirit of a life review. Now, if you think about it, in a life review, you get to look at your whole lifetime. This usually happens when you cross. There's even scientific evidence coming out now saying that they can brain map somebody as they're dying to see memory centers being innervated in the moments of them passing. So I love that there's some science there to support that idea of the life review. But in spirit, from my communications with many people that have passed, there is a life review. In that life review, many spirits get to observe the way in which they live their lives. And most of them will often recognize how much they grew as a person, how much they changed, how much they evolved in their lifetime. And that is really the majority. And if we want to truly choose to follow a more uplifted, higher vibe type of outlook, perspective, then it's recognizing that people do change, people grow and evolve, and we are meant to. That is the whole purpose of why we come onto this planet, is so that we can grow and evolve. We come in, we forget our spiritual connections, our divine connections, and we have to kind of struggle for the most part to find our way back to our heart center. Now, some people don't have to do that. They just get right to it. But majority of people have to find their way back home, and that home is that heart space. And in the finding of that, people have several different experiences in their life, often not the best. Sometimes there are several that really challenge them and ask them, who are you now because of this experience? Now that this happened, now that you did this thing, now that this person did this thing to you, now that you are in this situation, what do you want to do? Who do you want to become now because of this? And when we start to really embrace that lesson, that opportunity of a lesson in that moment, we can stop beating ourselves up for past things, for times when we didn't do what we should have done, or even more so, something that we would never dream of doing now, back then, right? But the time in which an event happened, a situation happened back then, it was being decided upon based on the best of your knowledge and abilities at that time. And who you have grown and evolved into being today might be so much different that would never be repeated. So to continue going back to that moment and regretting it, which a lot of us do, we live in regret, we can then take that as a growth point in helping mold us into who we are today. Because as a collective, each and every one of you are growing and evolving, which is the entire point of being on this planet, of being human, of having a human experience and existence, is to grow and evolve through experiences, trials and tribulations, triumphs sometimes, but sometimes big pitfalls, points in your life which really ask you, who are you now? Who are you going to become? And so one of the thoughts that Spirit brought in at this point, they said, a good way to look at it is when you connect with people again, say you haven't seen someone for a while, is to ask them, our standard question of how are you, right? We do it all the time. Hey, how are you? But we're not actually waiting for the person to truly tell us how they are. They're going to respond most likely with, oh, good. How are you? Oh, good, good. Okay. And you carry on. But what if you were to say, how are you? And you leave space for them to share with you how they have been growing and evolving since the last time you saw them or talked to them. What you notice about them that is different, that is new, that is bright. And I can see this example very clearly, and we all can in children, right? You take a child's perspective at age 5, and then you see that perspective at age 8. That's a big difference. And you can look and think, wow, have they ever grown? And they're maturing in their thought process. And I notice the questions they're asking now are very different. We have to remember that we still have that capacity of growth and change and evolution of self as adults. We are not meant to reach adulthood at, say, somewhere in our 20s and know it all and act perfect from that point and know exactly who we are and where we're going, because we are continually on that journey of figuring that out. Piece by piece, we gather more and more and more, so that by the time, hopefully, we are really old and gray, that we can look back on the amount of growth we accumulated and be like, wow, did I ever evolve? Because that's what the soul is really wanting. The soul is wanting to evolve. So we need to give it space for that. And if we can give it space with consciousness, like really recognize what's happening, we can then celebrate our growth, but also celebrate other people's growth, right? Celebrate how much someone has grown and changed continually. And I think we need to, it's easier, like I said, for us to observe that in people that are younger than us, but that continues all the way into the later years in life. I have talked to clients who, they're in their late 70s, 80s, and they're deciding on some really big pivotal life moments where they are taking big leaps and continuing to evolve. And I look at that and I'm like, wow, yes, they have not given up on the journey of growth. They're still now at this point in their perspective, which is different from when they were in their 60s. The perspective they have now, they are ready to make a change, a choice, do something different, and they haven't given up. They're still growing and evolving. And so we have this whole entire lifetime to do that. Now, one thing we have to remember is that I saw this really beautiful quote the other day, and this is what kind of brought this all together. And it said, some people will choose to remember and recognize only the version of you that they held the most power over, no matter how long it has been or how much you have changed. And that, I just pondered that so much. And we all have done that in some form or another, where we've kind of judged someone and we left it at that. Right? And maybe we see that person years later and we're like, yep, they're that person. But are they really? Maybe they are, because some people choose not to change. So that's fair. But I would imagine that the majority of people are no longer that person. Just like the 5-year-old is no longer that same mental state as when they're 8. They're growing and evolving. When they're 16, they're not the same as the 5-year-old. They're now the 16-year-old with more life experience. We need to recognize that, and recognize if you are judging someone that hasn't changed, maybe ask yourself why. Why not allow that space to see how they've grown or changed? Or if you are judging self, why not reflect on how much you have changed? You have grown and you are continuing to grow. And the more conscious you become of your choices in growth, the more you can create some really amazing stuff going forward. Life doesn't have to be continual speed bumps that sometimes feel like mountains, right? They can be little deviations that kind of color your path with more stories to share. But when you have more of an open heart to yourself and others, it really takes a lot of that away. And so another comparison with this too is, my husband and I talk about this a lot, is the people that we were when we first started dating, this is like 20 years ago, right? Who we were when we met are vastly different people than who we are now, right? We have both grown so much and changed so much. Even the people we were when we got married, which was 7 years after we met, were vastly different from the people we were when we met. And who we are now, since we've gotten married, we have grown and evolved so much more. but it doesn't take away from the experiences we've had growing together. But it's about, like, he is a really great example of someone who's like, what do you need to do in this life? Okay, go do what you need to do, and let's keep walking together hand in hand. And vice versa. We were just talking the other day of some new project he's considering taking on. And I'm like, okay, so what do you need to do to get there? Here are the things that I'm thinking, but I'm going to say yes, but let's figure out how this works. I can see that this is important for you to grow and evolve and step up into this thing. So let's figure that out. And that's become a normal thing between us, but that came from a lot of growth of choosing to be that way, choosing to step forward, not in judgment, but in support of the growth and change. Because again, it comes back to, we're here on this planet to grow and evolve and change, to try some things, to stretch ourselves in one direction that we may then, dip our toes or dive right into that and be like, whoa, wait a minute. I don't want to be in there. So I'm going to get out of that pool and I'm going to go the other way. Whereas another time we may dive in or dip our toes in and be like, wow, yes, this is what I want. And had I not been willing to try this, I would have missed out on this whole huge piece of me that I didn't realize was just waiting for a moment to be expressed or seen or heard or felt. So we have to really have a willingness to grow. And when we have that real willingness to grow and evolve without limitation for self, we can also apply that to others. And when we release judgment of others as well, man, do we ever free up space within self to really come back and focus on our own journey? It really feeds back. So I thought this was a really interesting thing to share, because it's really asking you, how are you growing and evolving? And are you really giving yourself the freedom to do so? Are you allowing yourself to really take on some different ideas? Try something totally new. I mean, you hear stories of this growth and evolution of people that say they went to law school, they became a lawyer, they had their family and all this, and then they thought, you know what? I don't want to do this. I actually want to be a doctor. And so they started back at square one and became a doctor, did their residency, all of that stuff, put in all the time and evolved into that. And then look at what this doctor now has in their whole arsenal of knowledge. They have the whole law system in there, which then feeds into what they can offer and do. Everything that we do in our lifetime gives us tools, gives us wisdom to pull from to expand our reach, expand our thought process and all of that. So we should really take in everything that we have been and embrace it, for it has allowed us to evolve. And hopefully when we embrace that, we can then further allow ourselves to continue to evolve into everything we can be. I was going to say who we're meant to be, but really it's not who we're meant to be. It's everything we can be. Because what we can become in this lifetime is unlimited. Your past is only your past, and it gives color to who you are today. But it also allows you to express and choose with more consciousness who you are going to continue becoming. And that is what is unlimited. So the energy of this year, this year is such a powerful energy year of forward growth, forward momentum. There's a lot of energy supporting us. March even is 1 month that has no retrograde planets. So that is forward movement. Imagine if you gathered all of the aspects of self in gratitude for who you are now, and you put that into your energy moving forward. Same with the way that you support others around you that are growing and changing and evolving and trying new things, thinking new thoughts. Supporting them in that gives them this power to stand up and truly feel the freedom to see who they are in that unlimitedness. So I'm going to leave you with that for today. I think it's just something so beautiful to ponder. And if you feel that there's someone that may really benefit from this message, I encourage you guys to share it. Maybe it'll help somebody else take that bold step that they have been waiting to take, right? Or too scared to take. Take that leap of faith in self, faith in purpose as to why they're here. So, like I said, I will leave you guys with that. I hope you have a beautiful week. If you are looking to deep dive further into your journey in a spiritual way, check out avalonspirit.com. We have many different personal journey guides to help you on your path of growth and ascension. And as well, check out the Avalon Spirit Facebook group. There are lots of like-minded people on there. I'm on there regularly too, so it's a great resource. And if you haven't already, if you're watching this, please do subscribe. If you're listening, please do subscribe, share, whatever feels right for you. And I will be back again next week, you guys. Have a beautiful week.